Hi, I'm Caroline Altman, and I'm very excited to be here with Peter Clifford today. Peter has been coming to the sanctuary for many years already, and to share his passion for yoga with his students here. So, hi Peter, how are you
Hi,
today?
Caroline.
So, why don't we start with you telling us a little bit more about yourself? Where do you come from?
I was born on the island of Tasmania in Australia, and I was at university when I first went to yoga, and I was very intrigued by how difficult yoga was because I played a lot of sport, and it made everything easier, although yoga itself was very difficult.
And what then you went after university. You went to India, and what inspired you so much about yoga that you decided to go on this faraway journey?
It was traditional in Tasmania, where I grew up, that when you finished university, you took what we call the gap year, and you travelled the world to get some life experience before you settled down to work. I decided to go to India to find out where yoga came from and what it was really about.
And where did you start your journey in India?
I went to Calcutta because it was a city that I'd heard about, and once I arrived, it was crowded, it was busy, it was too much for me. And I was thinking about going home until I met a friend who was going to Assam, and he said he was going to Shangri-La, and I'd heard about this mythical place, Shangri-La, and I decided to go with him. We went right up into the Himalayan mountains along the Brahmaputra River to a city called Guwahati, and there I had one of the most amazing times of my life.
And there was a festival happening, right, at the temple?
There was a festival at the Kamankya temple in Guwahati, which is the number one tantric temple, and people were doing amazing things. But there was one man just sitting, and people seemed to pay him a lot of respect, and I found myself gravitating towards this person and sitting beside him and watching the festival and watching what everyone was doing. And when he, at the end of the day, when the festivities were calming down, he motioned for me to follow him, and I followed him home, and he became my teacher.
So this was your first yoga teacher, and what made you decide to stay with him?
Um, I stayed originally because he was teaching me meditation, and to me before that asana had been yoga. I'd done a little bit of meditation for minutes at a time. I began to sit for hours at a time, and time just passed by. And when I sat up for my meditation, I knew things I didn't know before I sat in meditation with him. So I was curious about this man and became his apprentice.
For how many years did you stay with him?
I was his apprentice in total for about 16 years.
Wow, that's quite a long time.
Well, to me, he was like a magician, and I wanted to know what he knew so that I could be like him. And so occasionally I would go back to Australia, but I didn't really fit in anymore, so I would come back and study with him some more.
And how was it like to live with him, to study with him?
I like to call it apprenticeship, but it was more like I was the slave and I did all the work. I did all the cooking and the washing and the cleaning and the fetching and gathering. But in between all that, he would teach me by showing me something and making me practice. And I discovered the difference between studying at university, where people would come in and lecture and I would listen and think, oh yes, I understand that, I understand what they're saying, I know that. This was completely different. This was doing things again and again and again until you had an epiphany and you really understood something from doing. So it was a completely different way of learning. And one day when I was telling him about the magic that I saw, he said, no, what's magic to you is knowledge and practice to me.
Mm.
So that the practice is the key to yoga. It's union with yourself.
And what, you said you wanted to become a magician like him, but what did you...
Because he was a famous healer, and I would follow him around all the different villages along through the mountain valleys and the Brahmaputra River. And what he did to me seemed miraculous. He was in his 80s when I met him, and I had trouble keeping up in my 20s. And so I wanted to understand where his energy came from, what his motivation was. And when I asked him things, he'd say it's about the way you breathe. So I really wanted to learn these things while I could. So every time I thought about going home, I thought about what I wanted to learn, so I'd stay some more.
And then after all these years, what made you decide to become a teacher yourself?
When he was leaving, he said that he wanted to have a talk with me, and we talked all night. And he gave me a new name, Premananda, which means supreme joy and love. He told me to take my joy and love of yoga out into the world and to be of service to mankind. That was his definition of a yogi. And he gave me a mala and a mantra and a dharma, which is a life purpose, to be a teacher. And to spread the word of Anahata Yoga, which is a tradition that's thousands of years old. And he felt that it was dying away. So that's been my dharma, my mission, and I look at it as my bhakti yoga to this beautiful man who I loved.
That's very beautiful. So now you've been teaching for over 56 years already. What do you enjoy most about sharing your passion for yoga?
I like sharing with the students the freedom that yoga gives. My teacher told me once that yoga frees you from the tyranny of your mind and the mental prisons it creates. And I've discovered that there's this amazing freedom from what people think, judging yourself, comparing yourself to other people, worrying about the past, worrying about the future. That yoga teaches you that there's just here and now, and that's enough. And when I share that with people, I see them let go of the past, let go of their fear of the future, and they completely change. It's got nothing to do with asana and the shapes they can make with their body, it's the shapes they can make with their mind.
And you are sharing Anahata Yoga with your students?
I'm an Anahata Yogi, which is a tradition in the mountains, where they teach yoga of the heart. Yoga means union with your own heart, learning to love yourself exactly as you are, realizing that you're like a half-finished painting. You can't judge yourself because you're not completed your journey. And so you need to stop judging and criticizing and comparing yourself to other people and look at the evolution of your life. That the destination that you thought was so important is not as important as the journey, because along the way, during the experience of the journey, you realize the journey is more important than the destination. And what you learn and experience and understand from the journey usually changes the destination anyway. So I think Anahata Yoga has more to show now in the society we live in, where it's all about distractions, living outside of yourself, living out electronically and getting further and further away from who you are.
And not discovering what is actually inside of you.
Yes.
It's more about the outside.
And so I was taught that to truly love yourself unconditionally, without expectations, without conditions, actually teaches you how to love other people. And instead of wanting something from somebody else and being a needy person, demanding or wanting other people to love you, you then have this beautiful gift of unconditional love you can share with other people, where you don't have any expectations from them, no conditions, you just love them because you can.
It's very beautiful. Very beautiful ending for our interview, I believe. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I give you a hug to say thank you.
Just
Thank you.
Om Shanti.